Three Little Pigs by Mara Alperin in Jag Jatskava. Three Little Pigs. There were once three little pigs named Horace, Boris and Percy, who lived together in a teeny tiny cottage in the forest. One day, Mummy Pig said, "You're all too big to live here, so you must go and build houses of your own. But beware of the big bad wolf. Take care your houses are safe and strong." "Who's afraid of the big bad wolf?" chuckled Horace. "Not me," giggled Boris. And so the three little pigs set off. Before long they reached a large field. "I'll build my house right here out of straw," Horace cheered. "Straw? Are you sure?" asked Percy. "Oh, yes," Horace said. "Then it's playtime for me." And with a pat, pat, pat and a hip, hip, hey, Horace built a house out of straw. Soon after, Boris and Percy reached the edge of the woods. "I'll build my house right here out of sticks," Boris squealed excitedly. "Then I can go and play with Horace." "Sticks? Was that wise?" asked Percy. "It's perfect," Boris said. And with a stack, 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 and a tra-la-la, Boris built a house of sticks. All afternoon, Horace and Boris laughed and danced. They had quite forgotten their mother's warning. But Percy plodded on. "I want my house to be safe and strong," he thought. Then he came to a brickyard. "This is just what I need," he said. So, day after day, Percy worked with a rumbly bump and a tip-tip-tap and a heave-ho, heave-ho, until at last his brick house stood tall and proud. The summer passed. Then one day Horace was taking a lovely bubbly bath in his little straw house when he heard something growling. He peeped out of the window and saw two big beady eyes. "By my snout!" cried Horace, "it's the big bad wolf!" Little pig, let me in!" bellowed the wolf. "Not by the hairs on my chinny chin chin," yelled Horace. "Then I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow down your house," cried the wolf. And he huffed, and he puffed, and whoosh! Horace's house blew down, down, down. Horace yelped and scurried all the way to Boris's house of sticks. "Look out!" he cried, diving behind the sofa. There in the window were big, beady eyes and sharp, pointy claws. "It's the big bad wolf!" Little pigs, let me in!" roared the wolf. "No, not by the hairs on our chinny chin chins," trembled Boris. "Then I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house down." And so the wolf huffed, and he puffed, and crash! Boris's house clattered down, down, down. Horace and Boris squealed and galloped all the way to Percy's house of bricks. "Look out!" they shouted, and Percy saw big, bad, beady eyes, sharp, pointy claws, and truly terrible teeth. "It's the big, bad wolf!" he cried. Little pigs, let me in!" howled the wolf. "Not by the hairs on our chinny chin chins," shouted Percy. "Then I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house down." And so the wolf huffed, and he puffed, and he huffed, and he puffed. But Percy's brick house stayed up, up, up. The big bad wolf couldn't believe his whiskers. "I'm the big bad wolf," he howled. "No tasty little pigs ever get away from me." "Oh, help!" shivered Horace. "He's on the roof." "What shall we do?" asked Boris. "Quick, I have an idea," said Percy. "Yum, yum, yum, here I come," laughed the wolf as he slid down the chimney. "Right into a giling pot of boiling water! Ow, ow, ow!" screamed the wolf, burning his bottom. Then he leaped up from the pot and ran away as fast as he could. After that, the three little pigs never saw the wolf again, and with help from Percy, they became one big, strong house where they could all live together. And that was The Three Little Pigs. Beauty and the Beast by Timothy Knappman and Christopher Flint. There once was a girl named Beauty, as kind as she was pretty, who liked to read books and dreamed of adventure. Beauty's father was poor but hard-working, and he loved his daughter more than anything. One day, Beauty's father set off to find work in the city, but before he left, he asked his beloved daughter if she would like a special gift when he returned. Beauty didn't want to trouble him, so she asked for a simple thing. "Why don't you bring me back a rose, father?" And he promised he would. But on his way to the city, Beauty's father got lost in a thick, dark forest where the wind howled, thunder rumbled, and lightning flashed across the sky. In the midst of the storm, he came across a strange and beautiful castle, overgrown with rose briars. The roses reminded him of his promise to Beauty, and just as he was about to pluck the prettiest rose from the castle walls, a monstrous beast appeared and cried, "How dare you steal from me?" "I'm sorry," said Beauty's father, shivering in his tired old clothes. "I didn't mean to steal. The rose was a gift for my daughter. Please let me go," he begged. "I'll let you go if you promise to send your daughter to me," growled the beast. "I promise," said Beauty's terrified father. When Beauty's father made it back home, he thought his daughter would be upset at the promise he made. But Beauty would do anything to protect her family. Besides, it sounded like the kind of adventure she had read about in one of her books. When Beauty eventually arrived at the castle, the beast was waiting for her at the gate. He looked scary, but Beauty thought he just wanted company. He seemed lonely. The beast showed Beauty around his magical and beautiful castle. He led her through a giant ballroom and into a wonderful library full of books. Upstairs, the beast had prepared a bedroom for Beauty to stay in, with a closet full of the prettiest dresses. The beast wanted Beauty to be happy in his castle. Every morning, Beauty and the beast would find new books to read in the library. Every afternoon, they would walk in the garden, and the beast would pick the prettiest rose he could find her. Every night they would dance in the grand ballroom. Round and round and round they danced, until Beauty became dizzy with joy. Beauty grew to care for the beast and realised he was good and kind. She had never been so happy, but she often thought of her father and wondered when she would see him again. The beast,
who didn't want to see her worry, let her visit her father under the condition that she return after 1 week. He was falling in love with Beauty and could not bear to be parted from her for too long. The beast gave Beauty a magic ring.
"If you're ever missing someone you love, just make a wish,"
he said.
"This ring will reunite them with you."
When Beauty returned home, her father was so happy to see her. "My darling daughter, you're alive!" he cried. "I was terrified of what that frightening beast had done with you." "But father, he's not frightening at all," said Beauty, remembering the beast's friendship. He's not what you think." Days passed, and life returned to normal. But Beauty missed the beast and wanted to return to the castle. "Soon," said her father, "but not today, I beg you." Before long, a week had passed. She'd broken her promise. That very night she had a nightmare that the beast was dying. Beauty woke up in tears, realizing his heart was breaking because she hadn't returned. "My poor beast!" cried Beauty. "I must go back to him before it's too late." She used the magic ring to return to the castle and to her love. When Beauty reached the castle, she went running through all of the rooms searching for the beast. She found him in the garden, looking weak and very sad. She burst into tears. "You must not die," she cried. "I cannot live without you. I love you." As Beauty's tears fell on the beast, there came a flash of light, and the beast magically transformed into a handsome prince.
"At last I am free," he said. "Many years ago, a wicked witch turned me into a terrifying beast, but your love for me has broken the spell. Will you marry me, Beauty?"
"Of course I will," Beauty exclaimed. Beauty's father came to live in the castle and tended to the roses. As for Beauty and her prince, they lived happily ever after, and every night they danced until they were dizzy with joy. And that was Beauty and the Beast by
Goldilocks and the 3 Bears. Deep in the forest lived 3 bears. There was Big Daddy Bear, middle-sized Mummy Bear, and tiny little Baby Bear. Daddy Bear had a big voice. Mummy Bear had a middle-sized voice, and Baby Bear had a tiny little voice. You could only just hear it. Bright and early one morning, Mummy Bear was busy making breakfast. "We'll enjoy our porridge even more if we have a little walk first," she said. But while the bears were walking, so was someone else. It was a little girl called Goldilocks. She had golden hair and her cheeks were rosy, but little Goldilocks was rather nosy. When she saw the house with its door open wide, that naughty little girl walked right inside. Goldilocks was feeling peckish. There on the table she saw 3 bowls of porridge, so she picked up a spoon to have a taste. The first bowl of porridge was much too hot. The second bowl of porridge was much too cold, but the third little bowl was just right. And suddenly it was absolutely empty. Feeling rather full and sleepy, Goldilocks looked for a chair. How many do you think were standing there? 1, 2, 3. The first chair was much too hard. The second chair was much too soft. But the third little chair was just right. For a baby bear, Goldilocks sat down and crash!
She smashed the little chair. Goldilocks felt tired and cross after such a bruising bump. She quickly hurried up the stairs and peeked into the bedroom. There she saw a big bed, a middle-sized bed, and a tiny little cosy bed. The first bed was much too hard. The second bed was much too soft. But, the third little bed was just right. For a snooze. Meanwhile, on the forest track, the three bears were coming back. They noticed right away that things were wrong. "Someone's been eating my porridge," said Daddy Bear. "Someone's been eating my porridge," said Mummy Bear. "Someone's been eating my porridge," squeaked Baby Bear, "and they've eaten it all up." "Someone's been sitting in my chair," growled Daddy Bear. "Someone's been sitting in my chair," said Mummy Bear. "Someone's been sitting in my chair too," sobbed Baby Bear, "and they've broken it." He was the saddest bear of all. There was nothing left of his little chair. Quietly, on their furry paws, the bears crept slowly up the stairs. "Someone's been sleeping in my bed," grunted Daddy Bear. "Someone's been sleeping in my bed," said Mummy Bear. "Someone's been sleeping in my bed," squeaked Baby Bear. "And she's still there." Baby Bear's tiny voice woke Goldilocks. She opened one eye, and then the other. She leapt out of bed, ran down the stairs, out the house, and never went back. And what's more, after that, Goldilocks never had porridge for breakfast. The end. I hope you enjoyed that. That was Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Hansel and Gretel. Hansel and Gretel lived with their father, a poor woodcutter, in a little cottage in a forest. When Hansel and Gretel's mother died, their father married again. Hansel and Gretel's new stepmother was selfish and mean, the cruelest woman they had ever seen. One night, when the children were in bed, Hansel and Gretel's stepmother said,
"Husband, we only have food for one more day. We must send Hansel and Gretel away, otherwise we will all starve."
Father said no, but stepmother said,
"They have to go."
and Gretel said,
"What will we do?"
and Hansel said,
"I'll look after you."
Later that night, Hansel crept outside and collected some pebbles. In the morning, when Father took the children into the forest, Hansel dropped the pebbles as they walked. Father told Hansel and Gretel to wait for him, but he didn't come back. Soon it was dark, but the pebbles shone white in the bright moonlight to show Hansel and Gretel the way home. "We'll get home soon,
"By the light of the moon,"
said Hansel. Hansel and Gretel walked all through the night to get home. Father was happy to see them, but stepmother was cross.
"Naughty children,"
she said.
"I'll show you who's boss."
She told Father he must take the children back into the forest and leave them there. When Hansel went down to collect some more pebbles, he found the door locked.
"Oh no,"
he said. The next morning, Father took Hansel and Gretel deep into the forest. He gave them bread to munch for their lunch, and Hansel used some of it to make a trail of crumbs.
Tweet, tweet, tweet. At the end of the day, the crumbs will help us find our way,
he whispered to Gretel. Father told Hansel and Gretel, I'm going to chop some wood. Children, please be good and wait for me here. But he never came back. Gretel cried, We're all alone. Hansel replied,
The crumbs will see us home.
But the crumbs were gone.
The birds ate them. What will we do? I'll look after you,
said Hansel. By the morning, Hansel and Gretel's tummies were rumbling and grumbling with hunger. Suddenly, just ahead, they saw a house made of gingerbread.
A house made of sweets,
said Hansel. All we can eat, said Gretel. An old woman poked out her head.
Come inside, my dears,
she said.
This way, children.
But the old woman was a witch. She locked Hansel up and gave Gretel a mop.
Do the housework,
she said. Every day the witch told Gretel,
Cook your brother some tasty food. When he's nice and fat, he'll taste good, and I will eat him. I like to eat little boys.
Every morning the witch told Hansel,
Hold out your fingers so I can feel if you're fat enough to make a meal.
However, Hansel knew the witch couldn't see. Her eyes were sore and red, so he tricked her and held out a bone instead.
Not fat enough yet.
One day, the witch couldn't wait any longer.
I'm going to cook and eat Hansel,
she said.
Gretel, light the oven now.
And Gretel replied, But I don't know how. The nasty witch cried,
Just crawl inside. Look, I'll show you how to do it right.
And Gretel pushed the witch in and shut the door tight. Gretel unlocked the cage. She and Hansel could go.
Here's the keys. I'm free,
said Hansel. But first they went round the cottage looking high and low. They opened the door and, oh, what a sight! They found piles of jewels all sparkling and bright. Hansel and Gretel soon found their way home, where their father was waiting all alone. I'm so glad you're back. Your stepmother has gone, she said. He said, hugging them tight. From now on, everything will be all right. With the witch's jewels, they would never be poor again. And they all lived happily ever after. The end. And that was Hansel and Gretel. Little Red Riding Hood, retold by Burnett Ford and Tom Knight. Once there was a little girl who never took off her little red cape and hood. Her grandma had made it for her, and she loved it. She was called Little Red Riding Hood. One day, Little Red Riding Hood's mummy gave her a basket of biscuits to take to her grandma. Now don't talk to any strangers, said Mummy.
I won't,
said Little Red Riding Hood.
I promise.
It was a long walk to Grandma's, but there was lots to look at along the way. Birds, and bunnies, and squirrels, and lovely wild flowers. Before long, a big, bad, wicked old wolf stopped her on the path. "Where are you going so quickly?" asked the wolf.
I'm on my way to Grandma's house,
said Little Red Riding Hood.
I'm taking her a basket of biscuits.
You really ought to stop and pick her a pretty bunch of flowers,
said the wolf.
Good idea,
said Little Red Riding Hood, and she began picking flowers. She forgot her promise not to talk to any strangers. The wicked old wolf ran ahead to Grandma's house as fast as he could and knocked on the door.
Who's there?
called Grandma.
It's Little Red Riding Hood,
said the wolf in a sweet little voice. When Grandma opened the door, the wicked old wolf pounced and swallowed her whole in one big gulp. Then he put on her nightcap, pulled up the covers, and waited for Little Red Riding Hood. When she knocked on the door, the wolf answered in a voice like Grandma's.
Who's there? It's Little Red Riding Hood, she said. Open the door and come in, dear, said the wolf.
Little Red Riding Hood tiptoed in.
Why, Grandma, what big eyes you have, she said. All the better to see you with, my dear, said the wolf. And Grandma, what big ears you have, said Little Red Riding Hood. All the better to hear you with, my dear, said the wolf. And Grandma, what big teeth you have, said Little Red Riding Hood.
All the better to eat you with, my dear, snarled the wolf, and he jumped out of bed to pounce on Little Red Riding Hood. But a young woodsman passed by. Hearing the noise, he broke down the door just in time to knock out the wolf. Then the woodsman zipped open the wolf's stomach, and there was Grandma, safe and sound. The strong young woodsman took Little Red Riding Hood home, and she promised never, ever to talk to strangers again. And they all lived happily ever after. And that was Little Red Riding Hood by The Three Little Pigs by Emily Bollum. Once there were 3 little pigs who lived with their mummy in a cosy little house. One day, Mummy Pig said, "You are almost grown up. It's time for you to build houses of your own." So the 3 little pigs set off. Soon they met a farmer with a bundle of straw. "Please, may I have some of that straw to build a house?" asked the first little pig. "Of course," said the farmer, and he gave the little pig a bundle of straw. The first little pig took the straw and began to build himself a house. His brother and sister went on their way, and they met a woodcutter with a bundle of sticks. "Please, may I use some of those sticks to build myself a house?" asked the second little pig. "Certainly," said the woodcutter, and he gave the second little pig a pile of sticks. The second little pig set to work building himself a house of sticks. His sister continued on her journey. Soon she saw a bricklayer with a pile of bricks, and she asked him if he could spare a few.
Yes, of course,
said the bricklayer, and he gave her some of his bricks. Just as the first little pig finished building his house of straw, who should come by but the big, bad wolf? The little pig ran into his house and shut the door. Little pig, let me in, called the wolf. Not by the hairs on my chinny chin, said the first little pig. Then I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house down. Then the big bad wolf huffed and puffed and blew down the house of straw. The first little pig ran and ran until he reached his brother's house. The 2 little pigs hurried inside and slammed the door. Soon the big bad wolf reached the house of sticks. Little pig, Little pig, let me in, he said.
Not by the hairs on my chinny chin chin,
said the second little pig. Then I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house down, cried the big, bad wolf. The big bad wolf huffed, and then he puffed, and the house of sticks was blown to pieces. I'm going to eat you both for my dinner, cried the big bad wolf. But the little pigs were too fast for him. They ran and ran until they reached their sister's house of bricks. Now the wolf was very hungry. Little pig, let me in,
Not by the hairs on my chinny chin chin,
replied the third little pig. Then I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house down, cried the big, bad wolf. Then the big bad wolf huffed and puffed, and he puffed and huffed, but nothing happened. He took a great big breath and tried again, but the house of bricks did not fall down. Still, the big bad wolf did not give up. He climbed right up to the roof and began to climb down the chimney. But just at that moment, the three little pigs lifted the lid off their dinner. The big bad wolf landed in a pot of soup and he burned his bottom! Quick as a flash, the big bad wolf ran far away as fast as he could. And the three little pigs lived happily ever after in their sturdy little house of bricks. And that was the Three Little Pigs. The Ugly Duckling. Once upon a springtime, a mother duck was sitting on 6 smooth eggs. One day, with a creak and a crack, out hatched 5 fluffy, feathery little ducklings. There was just 1 egg left in the nest, and it was much bigger than all the rest. At last, with a creak and a crack, the big egg hatched. Out popped a big, raggedy, grey duckling. He wasn't like the others. What an ugly duckling!
Hello.
You're different to us, but I won't make a fuss, quacked Mother Duck. You're still one of my babies.
Mother Duck and all her ducklings came to the water.
Splish, splash.
They all went for a swim.
Quack, 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 quack.
The little yellow ducklings splashed and quacked, but the ugly duckling paddled quietly at the back. Mother Duck and her ducklings came into the busy duckyard. The other ducks gathered round. Look at them all! What pretty things! Except this one. Mother Duck tucked the ugly duckling under her wing.
What an ugly duckling!
The ducks in the duckyard didn't like the ugly duckling.
Quack, quack, quack. Don't come back.
They quacked. Even Mother Duck couldn't protect him. So the ugly duckling ran away. He searched for somewhere safe to stay. The ugly duckling came to a marsh where wild ducks swam, but "Don't come back! What an ugly duckling!" quacked the wild ducks.
Quack, quack, quack.
"Don't come back!" So the ugly duckling swam away. He searched for somewhere safe to stay. The ugly duckling came to a cosy old cottage, but Can you purr like me? Purred the cat.
Cluck, cluck. And can you lay eggs like me?
Clucked the hen. No, said the ugly duckling sadly.
Cluck, cluck, cluck. Don't come back,
said the hen. So the ugly duckling ran away. He searched for somewhere safe to stay. At last the ugly duckling came to a quiet lake. There's nobody here to chase me away. This is somewhere safe to stay, he thought. One evening, high up in the sky, the ugly duckling saw a flock of white swans flying by. I wish I could join them, he thought sadly. All through the winter, the ugly duckling lived alone on the quiet lake. The days grew colder and colder. Snow fell and the lake froze to ice. One frozen morning, a farmer found the ugly duckling shivering and quivering with cold. He brought him inside to warm him up. He said, "Look who I found!" But the children just chased him around and around. The ugly duckling ran away. He ran back to the quiet lake, where it was safe to stay. The winter was long and very cold. The ugly duckling wished, if only... At last spring came. The warm sun shone. Soon the snow and ice were gone. The flock of swans flew by, high up in the sky. The ugly duckling thought, I don't want to be lonely any longer. He spread his wings. He was bigger and stronger. The swans flew down to the lake. They greeted the ugly duckling one by one. Pleased to meet such a fine young swan. In the water, the ugly duckling suddenly caught a glimpse of himself. His ugly grey feathers had gone. He gasped, I'm a beautiful swan. Join us, called the swans. And so he did. And that was the Ugly Duckling. Puss in Boots. One sad day, a poor miller died. All he left to his youngest son was the mill's cat. A cat? What use is that? Sobbed the poor youngest son. But Meow was no ordinary cat.
Meow, you're my master now,
said the cat.
My master, I can help you,
said the cat.
But first, I need a new pair of boots.
Fancy that! A talking cat, said the young man. And with his last pennies, he bought a pair of fine new boots. I'll call you Puss in Boots, said the young man. Puss in Boots set to work. He put some grains of corn deep inside a good strong sack. Then off he went to the woods and waited a little way back. Before long, some greedy partridges climbed into the sack and...
Meow! Got you,
said Puss in Boots. Puss in Boots went to the palace to see the king.
Your Majesty, these partridges are for you,
he said.
A gift from my master the Count.
Fancy that! A talking cat,
said the king.
Thank you.
And he filled Puss in Boots' sack with gold coins.
My master, these are for you,
said Puss in Boots. The young man's eyes opened wide. Fancy that! My clever cat, he said. Next day, Puss went to the palace again.
Your Majesty, these rabbits are for you,
he mewed.
A gift from my master the Count.
Fancy that! It's the talking cat,
said the king. One day, Puss in Boots heard the king was coming along the road.
My master, quick, whispered Puss in Boots. Off with your clothes. Jump in the river.
The young man was puzzled, but he did as Puss had told him.
Shh, I'll hide your clothes. Help! Your Majesty,
said Puss in Boots.
My master went for a swim, and look, robbers have stolen his clothes.
It's the talking cat. Fancy that,
said the king, and he sent a servant to bring some of his own clothes for the young man.
My master, meow, take a bow,
said Puss in Boots. The king went on his way, and Puss ran ahead of him. Some farmers were cutting hay.
Farmers,
said Puss in Boots.
The king is coming this way. Here's what you must say. This meadow belongs to the count.
Fancy that! A talking cat,
said the farmers.
Whose fine meadow is this? Said the king. This meadow belongs to the count,
said the farmers. Then Puss ran ahead again to where some woodcutters were chopping wood.
Woodcutters,
said Puss in Boots. The king is coming this way.
Here's what you must say. This forest belongs to the count.
Oh, well, fancy that! A talking cat,
said the woodcutters.
Well, whose fine forest is this?
said the king.
Well, this forest belongs to the count,
said the woodcutters. Then Puss ran ahead to an ogre's palace.
You are big, ogre,
mewed Puss in Boots.
But are you clever
too?
Yes,
roared the ogre as he turned himself into a lion.
You are fierce, ogre,
mewed Puss in Boots.
But can you turn yourself into a tiny mouse? Yes,
squeaked the ogre.
Meow. A very tasty mouse.
Then Puss gobbled up the mouse. Soon the king arrived at the ogre's palace.
And who owns this fine palace?
asked the king.
Your Majesty,
mewed Puss.
This palace belongs to the count.
Oh, then the rich count must marry my daughter,
said the king. So the miller's son married the king's daughter, and he was never poor again.
My master, meow, life is good now,
said Puss in Boots, and they all lived happily ever after. Rapunzel and Her Ever So Shiny Locks by Gemma Carey and Kelly Caswell. Once upon a time, there was a beautiful young lady called Rapunzel. Beautiful, is that all? Says Rapunzel. Okay, let's start again. Once there was a beautiful, stunning, dazzling young lady called Rapunzel. Much better, says Rapunzel. She lived in a tall tower where no one could bother her, and she spent all day taking care of her award-winning hair. I can skip with my hair, I can swing from it, I can hide in it. My hair is the most marvellous hair in the world. Rapunzel knew that one day a prince would arrive at her tower. She also knew he would want to climb up using her hair as a rope. One morning, while Rapunzel was straightening her strands for the trillionth time, some hoofs came to a halt beneath her window.
Rapunzel! Rapunzel! Let down your hair!
called the prince.
No thanks,
She replied.
Rapunzel! Rapunzel! Let down your ever so shiny locks!
not good enough.
Rapunzel! Rapunzel! Let down your ever so shiny, gorgeously golden, amazingly lustrous locks!
Better, but I'm still not putting my lovely hair out the window, and I'm certainly not letting you put your dirty feet on it. Go away, Princey.
Fine,
said the prince.
but I won't come back.
After lots of tutting and humping, he led his horse away from the tower and galloped off.
I don't need a smelly old prince,
said Rapunzel, stroking her silky hair.
I'm perfectly fine on my own.
And to prove it, she spent the rest of the day ironing her certificates and polishing her trophies. Weeks and months went by. The prince rescued some other beautiful maiden, and their wedding was broadcast all over the world. Rapunzel watched in silence. She wasn't jealous of the bride's elegant dress. She wasn't jealous of her sparkling tiara. She was jealous of all their friends. For the first time in her life, Rapunzel felt lonely. Rapunzel turned to the bird on her windowsill.
Birdie,
She said.
can you find me a friend?
The bird glared at Rapunzel.
My name,
She replied.
is Sylvia, and who would want to be friends with you? Nobody wants a friend who is vain and selfish.
Tears filled Rapunzel's eyes.
You're right, Sylvia,
She said. After eating some ice cream and watching her favourite film, Rapunzel felt a bit better.
What should I do, Sylvia?
She asked, licking an enormous spoon.
You need to prove to everyone that you've changed, Rapunzel. You should do something completely selfless. I suggest you cut off your hair. Cut off my hair? My ever so shiny, gorgeously golden, amazingly lustrous locks? Yes,
Said Sylvia.
cut it off and give it away.
Rapunzel took her best scissors. With trembling hands, she made a quick snip, then another and another. Her hair tumbled to the floor. Sylvia called to her friends, and each bird swooped in to collect a shimmering lock of hair.
What will it be used for?
Asked Rapunzel.
All sorts of things,
Replied Sylvia mysteriously, and she too flew off. Before long, the hair was gone. Rapunzel's neck felt cold. A terrible thought suddenly struck her. Without her hair, how would anyone climb up the tower to visit her? How would she ever make any friends? Rapunzel curled up and wept. That night, Sylvia returned with birds of all colours, shapes and sizes. They gently lifted Rapunzel from her bed and carried her out of the tower. They soared over a deep forest and were soon gliding towards a glittering town. From the sky, Rapunzel spotted long golden strands decorating the houses. She saw golden ribbons looped through the trees. Even the birds' nests were woven with threads of gold. Faces peeped and peered to catch a glimpse of the girl who had made their town so special. Rapunzel looked at the wonderful world around her.
Welcome,
Said Sylvia.
to your new home.
Rapunzel never returned to her tower, and she never won any other awards for her hair. But the golden town attracted hundreds of visitors, and Rapunzel soon made lots of friends. And that made her ever so smiley. And that was Rapunzel and Her Ever So Shiny Locks by Gemma Carey and Kelly Caswell. I hope you enjoyed that. If you'd like to watch any more of my videos, just click on the links provided. Thanks!
Bye!